Have you ever been in a situation that you consider to be urgent? There was this one time when I was in high school and my older brother was in college that our parents went out of town for New Year's Eve. He invited one of his buddies over and we started making some treats for New Year's Eve, like most of you, I assume, also do. We were peeling some potatoes and his friend decided it was the best idea to put all the potatoes down the garbage disposal, and the sink started stopping up. He freaked out. He started running all around the house yelling, "Get the plumber! Call the plumber! Call the plumber!" Now in those days there were landline phones and he must have ran past the landline phone 5 or 6 different times yelling, "Call the plumber! Call the plumber!" In his mind, this was an urgent situation that needed a plumber to arrive immediately. So what my brother and I did is we went over and we turned off the water for starters, and then we got underneath the sink and we disconnected the piping and dug out all of the potato peels. It was not an urgent situation, but my brother's friend really thought it was. In our text for today, we are going to be discussing what Paul perceived to be an urgent situation. You see, Paul, when he went to a town called Thessalonica, he began staying with a man named Jason. Now, Jason and Paul and Timothy, when they were in that town, they converted a whole lot of people to Christianity. But they also ticked off a whole lot of people. They ticked off the governmental officials and the local Jews that lived in the town. So much so that they brought Jason before the local officials, and Jason had to pay a penalty for all the chaos that was going on in that city. Paul was only able to stay there for 3 weeks until he moved on to the city of Athens. But whatever happened in that town, Paul was quite concerned. So concerned that he wrote this letter of 1 Thessalonians to the church in Thessalonica as soon as he had the ability to do it. Let's read our prayer passage for today. We always thank God for all of you, mentioning you in our prayers. We continually remember before our God and Father your work produced by faith, your labor prompted by love, and your endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. After moving to Illinois, there was one sandwich shop that I fell in love with. Now, there's nothing really special about this particular restaurant, except for the fact that they make sub sandwiches really fast. Now, one day I was sitting down eating at this restaurant and I saw a sign on the wall that went something like this: there comes a time in everyone's life that they should stop expecting everyone to make a big deal about their birthday. That age is 7. The other day, my daughter gave me a birthday wish list. Now, when I first got this list and read all the things on it, I was thinking, man, she is really presumptuous about all these gifts that we're going to get her for her birthday. That just seems entitled, right? But then I got to thinking about it. She gives me this list because she knows all the things that I have done for her in the past. She knows that last year she got a present, and the year before that she got a present, and the year before that she got a present. But she did not just get one present, she got multiple presents. You see, in this passage, when Paul talks about remembering the work that is done through faith, we have to remember that to have faith in anything, we have to remember who has gone before us and how God was faithful in the past, and He's going to be faithful again in the future. So when my daughter was giving me this birthday list, she had faith because of what I had already done for her in the past. Paul writes these words: we always thank God for all of you, mentioning you in our prayers. We continually remember before our God and Father your work produced by faith. The key word in this passage is remember. When Paul was writing this letter to the church in Thessalonica, he wanted them to remember the things that he had taught them while he was there. And he also wanted to teach them some additional things that would help them persevere to the end. And he mentions 3 different words: faith, love, and hope. And the emphasis in this passage is on hope. But let's talk about the first word, faith. You see, faith is remembering the works that God has done in the past. Paul wanted them to remember the good work that had been started in them. He wanted them to remember about Jesus dying on the cross. He wanted them to remember that they don't have to fear death. He wanted them to remember. And he uses this word faith to help them remember. He says that it is the work of faith. Now, when we think about what God has done in the past, that is faith. And he wants all of us to remember what God has done, because if God has done it, he can do it again. Maybe you remember that old nursery rhyme. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby in the baby carriage. I remember my first time that I saw my wife in her wedding dress. She was walking down the aisle and the song was playing over the loudspeaker, "At last, my love has come along." So let's talk about this word, love. I mentioned earlier in the study that love had 4 different words in the Greek language. Love between man and a woman, love between family members, love between friends, and then agape, which is the love that God gives us. But in 1 Corinthians 13, when the word love is defined as love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it's mentioned in the present tense, where faith is remembering what God has done and acting in accordance with that. Love is remembering what God is doing in the present moment. So when Paul talks about the labor that is prompted by love, he is not talking about faith in what God has done. He is talking about loving what God is doing in the present tense, and that being a motivating factor for them to keep up the good work. As an adult, I've come to appreciate the sport of running. Not because I'm particularly good at it, I'm not very fast, and I don't have a lot of endurance. But what I do like about running is the fact that you have to have mental discipline to complete a race. You have to be able to keep going even when your body is saying, please, please, please stop. What makes a good runner is their willingness to get up on the days that they don't feel like it and keep going. That's why Paul uses this phrase, endurance inspired by hope. You see, runners, they have to find that hope inside of them, and they have to be inspired by it in order to put in the work. When it comes to our lives as Christians, we need to be inspired by hope. You see, faith is believing in and putting our faith in what God has done. Love is being reassured all the time in the present that we are loved by God and He is loving us. But hope is looking forward to what is to come. That what is going on right now, whatever difficult circumstances that we are in, that the God of hope is working it out for the betterment of all of us. So when we think about the 3 motivating factors that keep us going as Christians, they are faith, love, and hope. Faith looks back, love looks at the present, and then hope looks at the future. All of these motivating factors keep us going.